Thank you, Matt. Is this good? Yeah, yes. Well, let me begin by thanking the Economics Department for inviting me to this conference. This is the first one, it is the fourth, I believe, in the series initiated by Dennis Panton. It is the first I have attended. And before my remarks on the subject, I have some important things, something very important to tell you. And it is about the Economics Department of St. Augustine of the University of the West Indies. Because I have come to tell you that you are an extraordinary department, not only within the UWI, not only in the Caribbean, but I would say on a larger scale of contemporary departments of economics, including those in Canada, of which I know, because it has unfortunately become very rare for economics departments to treat of the real problems of the society in which they are located. This is a pretty terrible thing to have to say. But the discipline has become so sterile, so narrow, so formalistic, so taken up with playing with numbers. You know, when somebody is hired at McGill University or any other university, the question that's asked is, what data set can he or she bring? They don't care what the data is about, numbers. There have to be numbers, to be played with, to be put into models. I am hardly exaggerating. I am an emeritus professor at my university, and I get notices of seminars, and a whole year can go by, and there will not be a single one that I would wish to attend, because they are entirely about methodology, and they are never not about the substance. So I really want to pay homage to the people who have built this economics department, going back at least to those that I knew, and we go back to 1960. That is the beginning of this campus. It happens also to be my 50th anniversary of when I first set foot in the West Indies. In December of 1960. And my first contact with this economics department here was in 1964. It was a time when Lloyd Best was attached in some way to the department. When I was introduced to, or he went to look for George Beckford, a wonderful Jamaican economist, an agricultural economist, that is quite important, who was teaching here for a while. There is something about this economics department, and I must say the society that has given rise to the university and to this department, that has in some way managed to keep in touch with real needs of real people in the society, and to be one of service. Excellence, not only intellectually, but excellence in an attempt to serve the society, the community. And I was very privileged to be able to be here when you all honored Roy Thomas, who has clearly been a pillar of construction of this department. And I'm so glad that he mentioned, among others, Trevor Farrell, who, as he told us, was responsible for developing the graduate program of this department, which has produced such important economists for this region. So, and I have come here in part in memory of Dennis Panton, who created these conferences. And there is a tremendous tradition for younger members of staff here to continue, because this is an important institution, this economics department, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but throughout the whole Caribbean, and a great responsibility on younger members of staff to continue traditions that have been built with so much devotion, so much work, and so much commitment by so many people. I could not help but tell you this before making my comments. Let us start with the economy. This is the subject of the conference. And let us start with diversification. And let us begin perhaps with the session last night, which was very interesting. But on the other hand, I'm sure I was not the only person present who felt that we have heard all this before, many, many times over. And so I think we have to face the question of why has it been so difficult to develop industries why has it been so difficult to get off the dependence on energy? In fact, the dependence on energy has, of course, increased with the gas boom. Now, I was here at the time of the first oil boom, and there was a considerable amount of industrialization and diversification that Gregory Maguire described last night. The whole Point Lisas complex, which I have always considered to have been a very important step forward of diversification, participation both of the state sector and the private business and foreign businesses also. But in the case of the gas boom, there has been, I think, very much less. Now, what has happened? Well, one of the things of the differences between the conditions at the time of the collapse of the oil boom and the present have been really the changes in policy, the liberalization, the extent of the liberalization, and of course, in the larger picture, the speed with which the international economy has become increasingly important, and the degree to which very many of the policies which were used in times gone by to plan, to regulate, to coordinate, to give shape to the economy have really vanished in the embrace of the neoliberal paradigm of the market, carried, of course, to its extremes by eminent American economists like the people who invented or whatever the efficient market hypothesis, one of the most stupid ideas that ever came into economics, as indeed was proven in the application of this idea to the financial industry and all that happened, as you know, particularly since 2008. And it took one of the masters of international finance, like George Soros, to attempt to explain that if markets are inefficient anywhere, it is precisely in the financial services industries where they cannot be trusted, because people get carried away by waves of excitement, and we have things like Cash Plus and not quite the same here, but having some similarities. So what I'm suggesting to you is that the reason why we have not been successful in industrial diversification is because the market is indeed a very effective, gives very effective signals as to where it is sensible, profitable to invest. And what has happened here is that the investment which we have had here during the gas boom has gone into real estate, residential, real estate, commercial, shopping centers, and all of the various shops which make shopping centers profitable, imports, etc. The investment has followed the market. The market is here. A massive amount of purchasing power here, generated largely by the energy sector, and the market responds by investing in shopping centers, real estate, and motor cars, and such things. But and not in industries which have become, as somebody showed in the panel we had here on trade, even may have been competitive perhaps in the 1980s, but have become less so or not so at all in the 2000s. I may say I was very curious which were these industries which were competitive in the earlier period. Of the paper presented the Balassa ratios of competitiveness, but the answer came back, well, they were SITC, 6, 7, and